How the heck did that happen? This is going to be a question and answer session, guys. I've got no topic to start it off with. Adon's going to ask some questions. You guys ask a bunch of questions in the chat. We'll talk about anything. In fact, that's something that I'd like to talk about. What kind of long content do you want out of our YouTube channel, guys? So put it in the comments there. Tell us what you're looking for. We'll do a video about it. We can definitely do something with YouTube Live about that topic as well, where we bring in an expert too. Also, don't forget, we're launching Apex Mastermind in a couple weeks here. Seats are filling up, so fill out the form attached in the description of most of our current videos, and Adon will put that somewhere in the chat here for you guys to grab as well. And we'll set up a call. We'll make sure that you're right for joining the Apex Mastermind, because it is something that's got to be interactive. You need to bring a skill set, and you've got to be committed to it. This is not just a class that we're putting out there. This is not a way for beginners to learn about real estate investing. A true Napoleon Hill style mastermind means that a group of people get together and they form a collective knowledge. They share databases, they talk about problems, they solve problems for each other, they do business together. And that's what we're going to do inside of the Apex Mastermind. We're going to put together a group of people that are going to actually invest together. We're going to start businesses. We're going to own real estate together. We're going to do our best to live into this Apex Mastermind and help anyone who's a member to get a great deal out of it for their business. So I hope that it's going to be a group filled with like-minded entrepreneurs for sure, real estate investors definitely, but people who are going to come, who've got experience, who've got problems, who can bring solutions and live into this idea of a mastermind. What do you think, Adon?
I think that's great. I think it's going to be a great group.
And obviously you'll get access to us and our whole team, and we'll build a database together inside of Apex. So guys, we're really excited about this. This is the first time that we've done something like this, where we always say on this channel that we do this channel so that we can expand our business through partnerships. And this is another level of that, right? Like, so we're going to go into this mastermind group thinking that we're going to do deals inside of it. So anyways, give the video a like here on the way in, or the live, hit that thumbs up, put your questions in the chat. This is be a question and answers. Golly, I'm having a really hard time talking tonight. So ask some questions so that I can stop thinking and just start answering.
I got a question. What do you think of the recent article that came out about the $2 billion invested in Cabo Rojo, Puerto Rico?
Man, that's a great question. So what Adon is referring to is in Cabo Rojo, there's a group called the Rubin brothers. Maybe they're brothers. Who knows? Maybe. How could we ever tell, right? The Rubin brothers apparently are billionaires, and they are going to invest a couple of $1 billion into a, I would call it a Palmas del Mar or a Dorado type neighborhood with restaurants and hotels and shopping and everything. And so this is going to be massive for the southwest side of the island. I'm really, really excited about it. So you guys, if you follow the channel for any amount of time, you know that inside of our Opportunity Zone Fund, we own a couple of hospitality projects down in the southwest part of the island in Cabo Rojo. So we think that this could be huge for those properties. They are sitting there waiting to be developed. And it's always nice as a real estate investor, a real estate developer, to see other people investing money. So in this case, we were going to do a several $1 million investment into these two properties that we've got in Bahia Salinas and Punta Aquilla, which is at the very southwest tip of the island of Puerto Rico. And the Rubin brothers are going to do their investment about 5 to 10 minutes away from our property. So this would be huge for us. You know, our investment will be a drop in the bucket compared to what they're going to do. And I'm not trying to compare us to them, but it definitely is nice to be validated and to know that we had an eye for an area, and now there's some big players coming into that area. And so that's super. I think it's super for Cabo Rojo. I think it's just amazing for Puerto Rico. It's
what do you think it means for the mom and pop investor like yourself? Like, does it mean that now there's no more opportunities there? Will I,
Oh my
now it's
gosh.
going to be too much
No,
to
so
buy?
I think the exact opposite. So whenever, and this was part of our thesis when we came to Puerto Rico, the big investors are going to go into an area and they're going to do really large deals like this one. They're going to partner with Amman, and they've got 3 or 4 other
Hotel
massively big hotel chains that are like the best of the best. And, they're going to have the highest end restaurants, and they're going to have multi-million dollar homes and things like that. So what that's going to do for the area, it's going to provide jobs. It's going to increase the real estate values all around there. So I think that our thesis back in the day when we came to the island was to find out what Paulson was doing and then buy at his heels, right? Like, so go into the areas where he was investing in Condado, let's say, and then maybe we couldn't afford to go right next door to him on the beach, but we could buy a building in Santurce, the next neighborhood over. And that was our thesis, was to come in and buy the small properties that were not going to be touched by these big players. And this is the same thing. I think someone's going to invest $2 billion. They're not going to care what Robbie Krieger, the Flip Flop Flipper, is doing with a small house flip in Cabo Rojo, or buying a multifamily property for long-term rents in Lares or something. But because they're doing that investment, there's going to be other investments around it that are going to be phenomenal for really anybody, especially the small investor.
Do you believe it's...
Don told me not to look at him, so I'm trying not to look at him so I don't distract you guys.
That's amazing. Now, I would imagine 900 doors of residential, 500 doors of hotel space will create a lot of incentive for not only work, but for now a place that you can actually live in. Because anybody who lives in Cabo Rojo would have to drive back in the day all the way to San Juan to travel anywhere. But now with the Aguadilla airport being so close, you only got to travel, what, an hour and a half?
So it is maybe an hour, I think. Yeah.
So they're probably banking on having that international airport there to bring in just bigger crowds. And if you've ever been to Cabo Rojo, it's not overly populated. It's really more like rural area.
Yeah.
So what do you think you think it's going to be something super positive for the community? Or
I think it's massively
think the
positive.
protesters are going to be there?
I'm sure the protesters will show up. Why not? There's somebody going to spend a whole bunch of money and do a bunch of positive stuff. Let's go protest them. Of course the protesters will show up, but I think it's going to be massive for the community. I think it's really good for the whole southwest side of the island. I mean, all the way, I think it'll affect Rincon, Mayaguez for sure. I think Ponce and all of the towns in between Ponce and Cabo Rojo along the coast are going to be positively affected by this development as well. So anytime a lot of money is going to be invested in an area, that's going to bring people, that's going to bring the need for businesses. So I think, employment, there's going to be lots more employment. There's going to be a need for the housing for the people who are doing the building of all of this development that people are talking about. So you're talking about building some big hotels and building some neighborhoods and roads and infrastructure, everything that goes with it. And you're talking about needing, you're going to need water and electric, but you're also going to need things like grocery stores. You're going to need everything, right? You're going to need the Nike store to come in with the selling the shoes. Just everything is going to benefit.
It's an opportunity for all types of investors, not only real estate investors, but people that, a small chain of pharmacies, is a big chain of supermarkets.
Correct.
It doesn't just affect the real estate investor like yourself. It affects just the whole network of things that could of possibilities there.
It's certainly going to be fun to watch, and we should follow it on this channel and see how it does. But I do believe that it's going to lift everything up, right? Like, so all ships rise in a rising tide, and that area hasn't had a lot of development. My goodness, I can't talk tonight.
Well, guys, let's help out Robert here. If you guys have any questions about this development or real estate in general, you should definitely start asking in the chat. I have another one. Let's going away from the topic at hand. I'm under the impression that a lot of people give up after 1 or 2 offers not being accepted.
Ooh,
And that, to me, those people are not looking at enough possible deals
yeah.
in the time period that they're giving themselves. So like they'll go look at one deal and try to work on it for the whole month and not get accepted. And they should stop right there. Like how did you get past that? And how many deals do you have to do on a weekly basis?
Yeah, I love that question. I think it's excellent. I think your point is spot on as well. Like, so 99% of the population will look at 1 or 2 things, and maybe they make an offer, and then it doesn't get accepted, and they will immediately go, well, there's no more good deals out there. And of course there are good deals out there, but you need to be looking at not just some more real estate or making offers on a few more. I think it's the average person who's thinking of becoming a real estate investor, maybe they look at 3 or 4 or 5 projects and possibly make an offer on one. If it doesn't work out, they immediately jump to, oh, there's no good deals. And I think you need to be looking at hundreds and hundreds of pieces of real estate so that you can just get your feet on the ground and sort of start to glean the knowledge that you need to know what something is a good deal. And you should be making dozens and dozens of offers, really probably before you even expect something to get accepted. So if you happen to look at one thing and make an offer on it and it's the deal of a lifetime, congratulations and good for you. But that's not the way that it's going to go forever. I think if you asked, I think you asked me what it takes for us. I imagine we look at 100 deals to buy one. We probably look at 100 to make offers on a dozen or 2, and then get one deal out of the 100 that we look at. And we're talking to people who are going to have the right kind of deals and already have been doing this for a long time. And that's what it takes for us to find a deal. And we've got a track record of success. So anyone who's just getting started, who thinks that this is going to be easy and that you're going to be able to look at one, find one, make an offer on it, and it's all going to go really well, you guys need to get that out of your mind, because it's not
how life works.
You're probably not getting the deal that you think you're getting, but if you do, it just won't continue to be that way. Again, we look at hundreds. Don, you've ridden around with me for 3 years now.
Yeah,
what do I look? Do I ever say no?
No.
If somebody says, let's go look at a
$10 million wreck that needs at least $5 million to fix,
I go look at it.
Did.
Yeah. And if somebody says, let's go look at a $5,000 chicken coop that you could turn into a Airbnb somehow, I'm like, oh, let's go look at the chicken coop.
Yeah.
I look at them all. And why I do that is so that I will kind of know what is a deal at the lowest level, what is a deal at the highest level, and everything in between.
And I would imagine it's now even easier than when you started, because how would you go find those deals before? Now I can go on Zillow, I can go on Find It, I can go on Red Atlas and find these deals and create a list to call that week.
Yeah, there's so many places that you can find opportunities,
and not only that
didn't exist 25 years ago. I mean, we had to really hunt down things. Here on the island, it does remind me a little bit of when I started, because there is a lot of clearly distressed property that you would want to, and it's very clearly could be a deal. It could be a value add real estate investment. We see them everywhere. And somebody, it's usually not going to be us, needs to chase that down. We've got some other content out there recently where we talk about the inheritance system on the island of Puerto Rico and how kind of archaic it is and how difficult it is. It sets it up for failure for the island. But because you can clearly see the distressed properties, people want to buy them. They want to think about what's the highest and best use and how to fix them up. It's a very difficult process to go chasing them down. For us, we've chosen not to go that path. We like to look at properties that we can buy. So I like to look at properties that are for sale. So that means that I have a chance to buy it. And I even like to look at properties where I know what the price is that they're asking, right? So I see all of the same things other people see, where there's distress, and I understand why they want to chase down the families and find out who's got it. And if they can, God bless them. And those can be tremendous deals. That's an awful lot of work, especially if you're trying to do that on hundreds and hundreds of deals, right?
So besides, obviously the internet being such a key factor, but do you believe in networking and people knowing what you do, so eventually you have people bringing deals to you instead of you having to go on any website to go find them yourselves,
Yeah, no, of course, right? Why do we put out 1,000 videos on YouTube? It's so that one day someone is going to bring us a deal on the island of Puerto Rico or in Orlando, Florida, or somewhere else for that matter. It doesn't really matter at this point. We invite people to partner with us, so we invite people to show us their deals. I tell people all the time, if you're starting out in real estate and you're building a buyer's list, put me on the buyer's list, because we are really cash buyers. We are value add real estate investors. We don't mind taking on a project that needs a lot of work. And so the idea of the channel is that we will either partner with or buy from people that will bring us deals. But back to the previous question, it is a lot easier right now with the internet and with all of these sites that will show you. I know you can look at Zillow, you can look at Red Atlas, you can look at Classificados. There's a ton of places on the island where you can find real estate for sale. And there's so much distressed real estate on the island. If you're looking at real estate on the island of Puerto Rico, you can't avoid finding something that needs a whole bunch of work. And when you find something that needs a bunch of work, you can usually make money on those kind of things because they're worth less than they are once they're fixed up. And then you can negotiate with somebody who doesn't want to do that work and find yourself or create yourself a great deal.
We got a question from Samuel B.
Okay, what's Samuel got to say?
See if you can read that.
I can't read it. You got to read it.
You can't read that?
No, I can't. I can barely see that I'm on the screen. I'm old.
A couple years ago, I flipped a house, and the township was sending per capital tax for me to the house, which I didn't know because I didn't live there. A debt now ruined my credit over $90 or $90,000. Can I call debt collector and do a pay for delete? I really had good credit before. I'm not sure.
So
What's the question?
I think the question is he did a flip and there was some bill that was associated with the property that somehow stayed in his name and it's ruined his credit. Samuel, if that's not right, then clarify it in the chat. But I think that that's what you're saying. And yeah, so there are people out there who can negotiate with on your behalf to get that stuff taken off of your credit. And if it is something like that, like let's say, I'm guessing here, but let's say it's a water bill that somehow stayed in your name, or there was a bill for $80 or $90 and they kept trying to collect by sending you to a house that you didn't, sending information to collect to a house that you no longer own, and it's wrecked your credit. I think you can dispute that. I think that you can do it yourself. But if you can't do it yourself, just Google, fix my credit, and you'll probably get on some spam list, but there'll be dozens and dozens of people who want to fix your credit. So, and it actually can work. I do think that you can write the letter and do it yourself and get that stuff taken off.
Yeah. Have you ever had something like that happen?
I'm sure that I have had stuff like that happen, but I don't know that it's ever. So I don't think it's ever affected my credit.
No.
Yeah, I don't believe so.
Is that because you buy these houses in a business entity, or?
That's because, most bills like water bills and power bills don't attach to your credit. So I'd be curious to know what kind of bill it is that he didn't get.
It sounded like a tax bill or something.
Again, that shouldn't attach to your credit. Most of those municipal bills won't attach to your credit, but I don't know. So Samuel, if you can, let us know what kind of bill it is. I'm interested in that one. I've never had. Certainly, we've left the power on. I think we've sold properties and then left the power on and paid the power for people for, hopefully not very long, but probably at least several months. And then eventually we'll get wind of it and be like, hey, why are we still paying the power at 123 Smith Street? We sold that thing 2-3 months ago, and we fix it. But that kind of thing has definitely happened. When you do a lot of real estate, you're gonna have some things slip through the cracks, I guess.
So the question I'm gonna ask now is it goes with things we're going through now, but what do you do when these flips that you expected to have done maybe in 3-4 months, 6 months tops, go over, and you have investors that, you know, put money in, they're you know, they're starting to get worried, they don't know what's going on. Like, how do you bring it to their attention? Like, look, there's things that are happening. Like, it's not that we stop working, but it's you know, things that happen. We have to fire contractors. There's not enough materials. Blah blah blah. You know, the list goes on.
Question. So, and obviously, we do a lot of partnerships, right? And we do a lot of partnerships where sometimes we're partnering with people who we see every day, and we're able to discuss these things. And other times we're partnering with people who are back in the States, and let's say they're partnered with us on a small flip here in Puerto Rico. And I can think of 2 right now that have taken way longer than they're supposed to. And I'm actually in the process of talking to these investors and, you know, telling them exactly what you said. Like, I know we've had this house for sale on the island of Puerto Rico in Arecibo for, God, it's probably been on the market for almost a year. And we did just sell it. So I was very happy to be able to give notice to my friends, you know, Joan and Bobby Staker, and their investors. And we've done several deals. We did 3 in Puerto Rico. 2 of them went reasonably well and reasonably fast. And then this third one was a couple of really, really cheap houses on one lot. We've gone through multiple contractors, and then even after we got it renovated, it's taken a long time to sell. So it's kind of a specialty product because it's 2 houses on a small lot, and it's not clear who owns the driveway. I mean, there's some funkiness to it, right?
Okay.
And because of that, it's taken a while to sell, but now we finally got it under contract, and everybody's going to make money. Everybody's happy. But your point is well taken. I mean, you just have to communicate, right? Like, so I think that's one thing that I'm learning to do better. And even through this YouTube channel, I'm learning to communicate better. And I think the better of a communicator you can be when you're in those situations, the better off the relationship is going to go. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, you know, be clear and transparent, right?
Yeah.
It's just, you know, I'm not trying to tell you, hey, it's gonna finish tomorrow. Don't worry. Well, and then 3 months pass and tomorrow's never come.
So, right. And I don't want to also scare people, right? Like, oh, the sky is falling. Like, we want to tell you the way it is. And guys, if you go into any kind of investment, you got to go into it knowing that you could have things go wrong. We have a track record of success, and we look to that, and we're really proud of our track record of success. But that doesn't come easy, right? It doesn't mean that every deal is you buy it and then you fix it up for 30 days and then you put it on the market for 30 days and then you close it, and 90 days later everybody gets their money back and we've all made a profit. Now, a lot of times it happens that way, but in Puerto Rico, not a lot of times. So not a lot of times does it happen that way. Everything goes slower in Puerto Rico, but the margins are better, right? Like, so maybe it takes 9 months in Puerto Rico for a flip that went really, really well. You buy it, and then 3 months goes by and you've renovated it, and then 3 months goes by and you've sold it, and then 3 months goes by and you've closed it. Where back in the States, it was kind of routine that we could buy something, fix it, and then sell it and do it in 90 days. But
what do you think?
You have to know going into the investment that not every investment's the same and not everything happens. And if I could tell you which ones were going to go smoothly and which ones were the best ones, I don't know what that would do for us, but it would make me sleep better at night.
And what do you think is the biggest factor? So let's just talk about here, right? But what do you think is the biggest factor that kind of affects the progress of the project
Here on the island.
Here
of
on the
Puerto
island,
Rico?
yes, we're talking about here,
Yeah.
like Florida. Because when you talk to about Florida with me, it sounds like it's just another day. You know, it's like that guy's gonna go fix this, they're gonna go fix that. I got 20 more contractors if that guy doesn't show up, and you know, it's about that. I feel like the mentality over there compared to here is, look, if I do my job fast enough for the guy that brought me into work, he'll put me on the next one right away.
Yeah.
Because they'll be closing this one, they'll buy the next one. And that's what I try to explain to the contractors here is like, the faster you work, the faster I sell this, the faster you'll be on the next one.
Yeah, I think that's a place where we've struggled here on the island, is that we always tell people, hey, we want to get a good price from you. We're going to have lots and lots of work. And that is a system that's worked for us in the States, like, consistently. And you're right. In Florida, for instance, we're doing a flip right now, and it's a massive renovation. We bought the place for $200,000. We're putting about $140,000 into it. So everything got touched, all new electric, all new plumbing, 3 new bathrooms, a new kitchen, redo the swimming pool, make the yard look phenomenal, new roof, nothing. Nope. We basically rebuilt the house, and we will have had that renovation done. And it's one of the biggest ones we've done in 5 years in Florida. I think it's going to be from start to finish, probably 90 days. And that same renovation here on the island would take a year. And so we've also got multiple contractors that are working together. This is in Florida, so multiple contractors working together, mostly playing nice together.
Yeah.
And showing up, and this guy does his job and this guy did his job, you know, so the electrician is there while the guy is doing the demo on the rest of the house. And then the roofer is there while the AC is going in, and then the drywall guy comes while the window guy is, you know, so all of these things kind of fit together, and people work well together there. Again, the same project, we almost have to line it up one thing at a time. It's amazingly painful for me because I'm used to
Here?
doing it. It's amazingly painful for me here because I'm used to it going that way that I just explained back home in Florida. And if I try to have the electrician on the job with the plumber on the job, does that work? I mean, you know, does that go well?
In the project we're in, I would get calls, and we're going through that process. I have the guys doing all the cement work, and I have the plumber working behind them doing other stuff. And then each one of them want to blame one or the other for something else.
Yeah.
And
everybody's stepping on everybody's toes.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, well, and I'm like, listen, why don't you just do your job and let him do his job? And I'll go make sure that everything's working, you know, like it. And it's like, it's a level of babysitting that I wouldn't expect from grown adults.
No.
You know, I would expect, hey, you give one call, you get it, you know, that guy's working, you know, he's doing his job. You know, I don't need 3 other people calling me and being like, oh, you know, it's good to have eyes on the projects and know that, hey, you're being protected. But at the same time, you're like, how many more of these calls I'm going to get about bitching?
And we get the same thing back home in Florida. Like, we have a new question.
I have a question.
And I'll go back to my thought after the question.
Alan asks, you mentioned your property took a while to sell. What kind of things do you do to mitigate a property that takes a while to turn over? So, you know.
Yeah. So I think the question is, when things don't go your way, what do you do about it as a real estate investor, right? Like, oftentimes we will pivot. And for instance, let's say the property just refused to sell. We finished the renovation and we've got it on the market and it won't sell. Then you rent it, right? Like, so we may have to decide that we're going to rent it, which that would be a bummer, but you have to be willing to pivot, or you just you talk to your investors and you guys lower the price. Usually price sells everything. And I think part of the reason why our property that I'm speaking about in Arecibo took so long to sell, one, it took us a lot longer to renovate it, like Adon and I were talking about. We went through a couple of contractors before we finally got it done. And then two, we probably asked too much to start. And that's probably a pretty common mistake that people make. Is it's okay to ask a lot. Like you've done a great job and you're really proud of it. Ask the top of the market. But if you want it to move quickly and it doesn't, it's almost always price, right? And so for us, it was price, right? Like, so we're selling it at a place where we're going to make a profit, but we originally priced it at a place where we would have made a really nice profit. So
How long did it take you to realize that?
I probably in Florida, it would only take me a week or two or maybe a month because we have a really good MLS system and we know that if we price things right, we're going to get offers. In Puerto Rico, it definitely takes longer to realize that you're overpriced because you don't know, you don't have a really good MLS system. So you're not always getting the looks and you don't know if people aren't looking because of the fact that it's just hard to find your property, or if it's overpriced. So it's a little bit difficult and you don't want, and so we're slower to drop the price on the island of Puerto Rico than we are in the States. Like if I put the house that I'm talking about in Orlando, in Winter Park, Florida, we're probably going to ask $550,000 for it. So let's say we go out at $550,000, which was like higher than the top of the market. And 3 weeks goes by and we have nobody look at it and no offers. We're going to absolutely start lowering the price, and we'll lower it fast until we get to a point where we're getting lots of people looking at it. And then if we're getting lots of people looking at it and we still aren't getting offers, we'll continue to lower the price, probably a little more slowly. But until we can get people, the difference again is in Florida, we know because of the MLS how many people looked at it this week. We even know what they say about it. Like on the island of Puerto Rico, we might have the property in Arecibo had 4 different real estate agents that were trying to sell it. To know when they showed it, who they showed it to get feedback,
Nothing.
Really hard, really hard. So it takes like weekly meetings with them. Hey, you said you were going to show it last week. How'd that showing go? Oh, they didn't make it. You didn't show it. Okay, great. When are they going to show it? Oh, you're going to reschedule it then. I mean, it's like pulling teeth. I feel like sometimes.
When I sold the apartment in Orlando with Drew,
that
was such a streamlined process.
Yeah.
Every time you take somebody, call me. Hey, they said this about it. Would you be willing to do this, that? You know, like
even if they're saying, hey, my guy showed up, he said it's a piece of junk, it's way overpriced. I want the feedback, but I feel like sometimes maybe for whatever reason, and going back to that communication that we talked about, it's more difficult for us here on the island of Puerto Rico because we have a language barrier a little bit sometimes, but also culturally maybe. People don't want to be offensive, maybe. I don't know.
I don't think it's that. I think there's a big problem with sharing. And this is coming from a Puerto Rican. We have a big problem with sharing because co-broking and stuff like that. I'm not a realtor. I'm none of that.
Yeah.
But to me, it seems to move the ball faster than when you see listings that say no co-broking or anything like that. So it's harder for you and me because instead of being, I'm gonna go get what do you call them? The realtors that represent you, a buyer's realtor.
Yeah, a seller's agent,
a seller's agent,
or a buyer's agent.
Yeah, to go out there and go negotiate for me or talk to them and not have to waste time on the phone with people. That are gonna explain the it's a 3-bedroom, 1 bath, blah 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 blah. You know, it's really hard for that here. When they could be so much more faster and mainstream to just have that little option, be like, let's just share this and see. I'll open my network to you, and here you go.
Yeah.
And I know these first 10 guys are probably gonna buy it, so let's go after them.
You know what's really interesting about that is that because we have a difficult sales system or a lack of a really good MLS system on the island of Puerto Rico, there's arbitrage in it. So as a real estate investor, I'm able to find great deals if you know who to talk to, when others can't, right? And so the knowledge or the information's not out there to everybody. And so for me as a value add real estate investor, because I'll look at hundreds and hundreds of things, I'm able to find that one that fits my criteria. Where in Florida, the good deals come and I have to jump on them in minutes. Like if I see something in Orlando, Florida that I think is something that I can make money on, I have to agree to buy it sight unseen within like 30 minutes or it's sold, right? Like because thousands of people are going to look at it. Thousands of people that are thinking like me are going to see the same thing that I see and someone's going to take it quickly. In Puerto Rico, that great deal could be sitting on the market for 6 months and nobody sees it, right? Nobody who thinks like I think would look at the property. And so it gets mismarketed. It's being shown to someone who's looking for a place to live versus someone who's looking for a way to make money. You following me?
No,
I love the arbitrage of it.
It
frustrates the shit out of me when I'm ready to sell. So on one aspect, I really enjoy the system because you can find the arbitrage. You can find, even in a condominium, and I've talked about this before, you have 3 that are for sale with different people, and one may be priced way up here at full, $1 million, and then another one needs a bunch of work and they're still asking $1 million, and then there's another one that they're asking $500,000 on that doesn't need any work. And like there's this arbitrage that happens sort of naturally, and it's a tough thing to learn, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been one of the things that's been most fun for me when I'm looking at finding a great deal, and one of the things that's also the most frustrating for me when I'm looking to sell my properties.
I would imagine.
Yeah, it takes there's a learning curve, right? Like there's definitely a learning curve to it.
Here we got another question from Eric. What about the cost of construction in PR versus Florida?
Yeah, great question, Eric. The cost of construction in Florida versus Puerto Rico, I would have said I've been here for 6.5 years, and I would have said for 5 years, I would say the cost of the renovations on the houses that we see was relatively the same from Florida to Puerto Rico. And I believe that it's changed and it flipped. So I would say that for 5 years, it was probably slightly more expensive to renovate something in Florida. And I think about a year or a year and a half ago, it flipped. And now it's a little bit more expensive to renovate things on the island of Puerto Rico than it is in Florida. And some of that is that it just takes so much longer, right? Like, so I can still buy things for roughly the same amount, but yeah, the cost of labor has changed a lot on the island. And I think that because things take so long, it seems as though to me it costs more to renovate something in Puerto Rico than it does in Florida. So I hope that answers your question. I'm happy to answer a follow-up if you want me to be more specific.
Got another one from Samuel. How did Ben Mala get so rich? Is that doable for the average person?
How did who get rich?
Ben
Mala.
And I kind of know a little bit of his story.
Do you?
He
tell me.
He was not rich. He came from I think he once he got out of the military is when he decided to start doing real estate.
I don't know Ben's story that much. I mean, I've watched some of his YouTube stuff. He fascinates me. Anybody, guys, if you can connect me with Ben Mala, he's somebody that I'd really like to talk to and would love to be able to shoot a YouTube video with him. That would be a lot of fun for me. We are very similar, right? Like, so Ben Mala, one thing I will say about him as watching his content, he's a real estate investor. He's not just a guy who's saying that he's doing some stuff. He actually, I think he made his wealth because he's someone who's gets down into the dirtiness of it. He buys distressed properties and he renovates them and he brings them up and he talks about it on his channel. He'll go in and buy a hotel that's not performing well and figure out how to run it properly and get it to cash flow better. So yes, to answer your question, I think that's what we're preaching here on this YouTube channel, is that this is available to anyone. Certainly, like you said, Ben Mala didn't start out with a silver spoon in his mouth. He didn't have a whole bunch of money or a rich uncle.
How about you?
Or
Were you rich when you?
I wasn't rich
Were
when I
you
started.
filthy rich?
I wasn't filthy rich. I wasn't any kind of rich. I was broke. I was in debt. I was
2 kids?
out of work, had 2 kids, had to provide. I was a bad employee. I had no particular skill set. I wasn't handy. I wasn't able to fix stuff. I was really like only able to break shit. Um, and we were able to figure it out. And so I think that there is a way here for anybody to become a real estate investor. And I also think it's a lot easier now than it was for Ben Malo when he was starting out. And it's a lot easier today than it was when I was starting out in the mid 90s. And with technology and with the way that you just with the internet, you've got everything at your fingertips. So please know that this is something anybody can do.
Got another question here from Angel. If you have investment property in the mainland and you won't invest in PR, should we sell or refinance to invest? What would be?
You have property in the mainland and you're thinking, should you sell your property in the mainland to then invest in Puerto Rico?
Yeah.
That's what I've been doing for 5.5, 6 years. Yeah. So I've been here 6.5 years. When we first came, we came with a set amount of money. And then almost as soon as I got here and realized that I could make more money in the stuff I was doing on the island of Puerto Rico, I started selling things back home in Florida and bringing the money to the island of Puerto Rico. And it's been a tremendous decision. So look, if you've got one house and you're brand new to this, do I suggest that you sell everything you've got and risk it all on coming to Puerto Rico? That's what I would do, but I'm not going to encourage you to do that. But I am, yeah. I mean, I tend to jump feet first into stuff without putting a whole lot of thought into it, especially when I was starting out. I definitely did. I mean, now that we've done pretty well for a long time, I'm way more cautious. But when I was first starting out, I just burned the boats. But I think investing in real estate in Puerto Rico is far more lucrative even today than, for instance, investing in real estate in Central Florida, where I'm from. And that's where I know the Central Florida real estate market like the back of my hand. And I still think that I will spend more time over the next few years, 3 to 5, maybe 10 years in Puerto Rico and investing in Puerto Rico because I see more upside.
This is why you need to continue from PR 787 Trade. Good to see you back. Another
Thanks.
question from Angel.
Keep them coming, Angel. Thanks, man. And guys, the questions are great. This is how I envision every Monday Night Live. Like this is great to have these questions.
I think this question is coming back to when we were talking about why there's a big problem with sharing here.
Okay.
It says they need to get away from the dealership mentality. They will find it to be much easier and much more profitable. And I would agree with that. If they were to share more,
yeah,
the network should be fast money.
You would think, and so the people that we've had success with when we're selling stuff, and I'm talking about that, like, so I had Raul Villanueva in recently. We did an interview with him. I don't know if it's been out yet. I had Chris Rivera in, and these guys both will co-broke and they share, and so I invite them in to tell their story, and so that this YouTube channel can know who I think are the good realtors. Roberto Segui is another one,
yeah,
on the island that we use a lot. And so if you find the ones that will share and do the co-broking, then you will see things that go faster. And here's one thing that I think is a little bit unfortunate is that there was some recent lawsuits that are going to kill, it looks like, the way that the MLS works back in the States. And it's not going to be good. We have a really good system. Even I can see them saying it's price fixing and stuff, but it sure as hell worked for a long time. And it looks like, at least right now, the trend is going to be more the States coming towards the way that Puerto Rico is doing it, and less so Puerto Rico moving towards the way the States have been doing it, which, again, guys, that's going to create an arbitrage. So there's good and bad in everything. Yeah, I think so.
Maxwell says, "Hey Rob, thank you for always sharing great info."
Wow, thanks, man.
Another question from Angel here. What are your thoughts on the rental market and PR? Is it worth buying and holding yearly compared to Airbnb?
Oh man.
Airbnb.
Yeah. So we do both. We've invested first when we came to the island, we were buying small multifamily houses to keep them, and that's gone really, really well. We've seen the rents have increased pretty significantly, not as fast as they're increasing back in the States. And I'm kind of glad about that because I think things have gotten out of control with rents in Florida, for instance. But on our long-term rentals, we've had a pretty fun rise. Like I think when we first started out, it was a 1 bedroom was 500, 550, 2 bedroom was 600 or 650, and a 3 bedroom was 700 or 750. And that was kind of what we lived by when we first started out in Puerto Rico. And now we've seen that rise up to where it's kind of jumped a level. A 1 bedroom now is probably 650 to 700. A 2 bedroom is going to be 750 to 850, and then a 3 bedroom is going to be approaching $1,000. So that's a pretty nice increase in the long-term rental portfolio that we've got across the island. And so I always think that buying real estate that cash flows, if it cash flows for you well, then the long-term rents is the way to go, because it's not a hard management, and you're going to get the pay down from somebody else. You're going to see rents rise over time, and you're also going to see appreciation. So I love it.
Just to add a little bit to that too, and this is a theory I haven't tested out, but I've been thinking about it a lot, is if it's good for long-term rents, but you can recognize in the area that there's an opportunity for Airbnb, then I would fix it up to the Airbnb standard, try Airbnb first. And if it doesn't go well, I know in the background I can ask for a potential higher rent, just because
because you did it so nice.
You did the value add the right way instead of trying to keep it at the most minimum.
Yeah.
And what would be your thoughts on that?
In areas where it deserves to be on Airbnb. So I still struggle with some of these areas where people will just think that anybody should be on Airbnb, and there are areas where people don't go and spend the night. So you don't need hotels and you don't need Airbnbs.
No.
And trying to force, for instance, I don't want to pick on a town, but let's say Juncos. Juncos is out in the mountains. It's not really much tourism going on there, and long-term rents are fairly stable and they're sort of low, but you can buy those things at a pretty good price, right? And make them cash flow. And to think that you're going to then renovate it up to a much higher level and get a higher rent, probably not going to fly. No matter, sometimes you can over renovate for an area.
Yeah.
So I'd be careful with that. And I don't think that necessarily the Airbnb is going to fly in a small multifamily in Juncos, right?
No.
But if you've got the same building, just move it over to the San Juan metro area and put it somewhere close to the ocean, then yeah, your Airbnb is probably working there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We got another question here. Samuel B. Do you ever do interest-only loans to get higher cash on cash return?
Yeah. So Samuel, if you watch the channel here, we don't borrow a ton of money, but yes, we have borrowed interest-only loans. We've lent on interest-only loans. We've done just about anything you can think of, but there's nothing wrong with paying someone an interest-only loan so that you get better cash flow, right? Like, and you know what your payment is, and it's steady and it's fixed. I like that, actually. So we have, I'm trying to think right now. I think we've recently done that. Yeah. So, okay, I've got a property in Orlando, Florida, and it sort of was a duplex, and we bought it for $235,000. We borrowed the money from the bank originally to fix it up and then get it rented. And so it was a loan from the bank at whatever our 80% of our purchase price plus all of our renovation costs, which basically worked out to all of our purchase price. And we borrowed the money on an interest-only loan. We then put a renter in there, and we did pretty well because we were paying a fixed interest on an interest only loan. Now we're a couple years down the road and that loan is due and we've got to refinance it. And that hurts a little bit because our long-term fixed is going to actually be more than our original construction loan was.
So you initially went and borrowed from a bank, not a private investor.
In this case, we borrowed from a bank.
So you're doing, so if you were to, would you still call that a burr? Because you're gonna now.
Yeah, it's still a burr. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because we either at this point we borrowed money that was to buy it and fix it, and we wanted to keep it. So we always knew we were going to refinance it. Okay. So we either need to refinance it or we need to sell it, and we don't want to sell it. We own other rentals in the neighborhood, and keeping it makes sense.
Okay. BK says, "What's up, guys?"
Hey, BK.
So guys, if you have more questions, please keep answering. If you like this type of conversation, let us know in the comments. We want to do more of this if this is what you like.
How many people are watching right now?
We have about 15, but
wow, that's awesome.
It's been a good consistency.
Yeah.
I wanted to pull the curtain back on the question from earlier when we're talking about when these renovations take long. So we talked about how transparent you would be with your investors, the people who are putting money into this project. Now, what happens in the background when you have to fire that contractor or notice that, hey, this is taking too long? How do we adjust to make sure we can get this done in an orderly fashion? And even when it doesn't happen that way, how do you keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing to get it done?
You can answer that question probably better than me right now.
I can answer it, but I want to hear from your 20+ years of experience. My 1 year of experience.
You're going through it.
You're going through it
right now, and that's why you're asking. Yeah, when you have trouble, and trouble will come, right? Like, so successful people don't have less trouble than non-successful people. It's what you do with the trouble once it comes that is going to define whether or not you're going to be successful consistently or not. So I think it's very important that when something is not going the right way, you work harder on it. You spend more time on it. Yeah. You double your efforts back into it, right? So, and it's going to be painful, right? Like you're going to hate it in the moment. It's going to suck.
Yeah.
But once you get through it and then you get down, you're going to be able to look back on it and you're going to learn from it. And that's when I was first starting out and I was learning these lessons that you're learning. One of the things that I was able to do fairly early on at a young age was to write off the tough experiences as that's a semester of college. And so then I don't want to say that I was looking forward to having the problem, but I was able to, in my mind, deal with the problems in a way where I'd say, all right, I'm going to learn this so that next time this isn't going to happen to me. Yes. And sometimes it takes me, because I'm not a great student, it took me a few times of learning the things, but on the really big ones, I'd try and learn it the first time.
Yeah.
On the really, really big ones, I'd pray to God and I'd say, God, please let me learn it the first time.
Yes.
So that's what you do, right? I mean, that's what being a real estate investor is about, is being able to deal with the struggles and the problems that are going to come.
Yeah. That's a good answer.
That'll define your success over a long period of time.
Yeah, no, and I think it really tests, like you would say, test your mettle.
Yeah,
be like,
you're gonna know who you are.
If you can get through this, then you can do it. If you found that this was way too difficult, then
that I've seen a lot of people that do give up, and it is too difficult for some people, right? Like, I encourage everyone to become an entrepreneur, and I don't encourage you to become an entrepreneur because it's easy. I encourage it because of what it's going to make you, right? Like, so. I know that I was a bad employee and I needed to provide for my family, but by going into business for myself and doing it for myself, I became something more than I ever thought that I would. I mean, I really have
pushed the limit.
I pushed the limit, and I have businesses and successes that I look back on now that I just go, when I was doing that first house, that was not even a dream, right? Like, so that was like playing basketball in the 5th grade, and one day you're in the NBA and you look back on when you were in the 5th grade playing basketball. So that's how that works, right? These things stack up.
We got Anthony asking, what cities are you investing in mainly?
Are you asking Anthony for the island of Puerto Rico or Florida? And I'll answer it both ways, so you don't have to clarify. But in Florida, the I-4 corridor. So you'd take the Tampa St. Pete area and jump on I-4 and cut across the state and go all the way out to probably like St. Augustine. So that I-4 corridor, any of those towns that are on that path, we are investing in and interested in hearing about your deals on. Also in Florida, I've got a sister in Gainesville, and I have a son who went to the Florida State University. So if there are deals in North Florida, around Gainesville, Florida, a little bit north, a little bit south, we would look at that. And certainly, because my son knows Tallahassee now, we could tackle that, although that would still be a stretch because it's 4.5 hour drive for us. So that's Florida. The island of Puerto Rico is pretty open, but we mainly invest right now San Juan metro area and west. And so I was just in Yabucoa yesterday on Sunday, and I saw some really amazing stuff. And like some stuff where I'm like, oh my God, I want to buy, but I'm not going to buy it because I don't want to have one deal in Yabucoa. I'm not going to have one deal east of San Juan when I know that I'm moving west, and I'm trying to go as far west as I can get from Yabucoa. So even though I saw some stuff that was great, I'm probably going to pass, right?
And Yabucoa is
Yabucoa is beautiful. Oh my gosh, beautiful, right? And if I'm honest with myself, if the deal's good enough, I probably am still a sucker, and I'll buy it and, and then have the brain damage and
oh, why did I do this?
Yeah, why did I do that?
What are your thoughts on mortgages versus cash purchases on the island? I'm in New Jersey. I'm not a big fan of mortgages, but I have a son that has been trying to convince me otherwise.
Yeah, so to the extent that we borrow money, we are probably borrowing most of the time in the States. And that is really not that we wouldn't borrow money on the island of Puerto Rico, but it's not easy to borrow money on the types of projects that we do. So those small multifamilies here in the island of Puerto Rico, it's not easy to borrow money against a 4, 5, or 6, or 10 apartment house. And those are the size deals that we're doing. So once you realize that on the island of Puerto Rico, that stuff's hard to borrow on. So we just do cash. Plus the cash on cash returns work really, really well in the island of Puerto Rico. So I would make a deal better by borrowing against it in Florida, probably ahead of trying to do the same thing in Puerto Rico. But again, it's because it's difficult to borrow on the assets that we've got. If it was a single family house, I think it doesn't change much either place, right? Like you can get a loan fairly easily on a single family house here or there.
From Eric, where in PR do you think is the most overrated, overpriced market?
Yeah, for me that's easy. I wouldn't buy in Dorado Beach East, but I don't like country club living, and I don't have $20 million to go spend on a house. So Dorado Beach East is sort of just way too expensive. Many parts of Palmas del Mar for me are not going to make sense for an investment standpoint. When I came to the island, I didn't go into Old San Juan, and I stayed away from Condado. I probably made a mistake not going into Old San Juan and Condado at the time that I got here. And I definitely made a mistake not going into Dorado at the time when I got here, because everything has just gone so crazy in those areas. But if I'm thinking about what do I think is too expensive, those are the areas, right? Like, so, and by the way, I just mostly named most of the areas where the expats go, the gringos, right? That's gringo land that
Even Rincon.
you don't see me really investing in in those areas because your money doesn't go as far, your returns aren't as good. So we stay away. And I'd prefer to be in Santurce than Condado.
So we're coming up on an hour. There's a couple more questions here to answer.
Yeah.
If anybody has their questions, now is the time to put it in, because once we're done with these, we're done until next Monday.
Wow, we ran through an hour.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, guys, I hope you like this Monday Night Live. We're going to start to try and do this, and I've said that I'll try and dial it in. I think 7 o'clock is the time that we're going to do this Monday night, 7 p.m. moving forward. At least we're going to give that a shot for the next month or so.
Carlos has 2 questions. Did you close the interviews for the Mastermind project?
No, the Mastermind is still open, Carlos, and fill out the form if you haven't. We'll get in touch with you. We'll have a phone conversation. The Mastermind is a commitment, and we would love to have you be a part of it.
So, Carlos, in the description of this video, the first line there, the first link is for the Mastermind form. Just fill that out, and someone will reach out to you. The second question is, do you have investments in the Dominican Republic, and what do you think PR's future with the huge coast-to-coast construction in the Dominican Republic?
How does it compare to the Dominican Republic? Is that the question?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Do you think it's going to hurt the tourism here or not? And I don't think so.
Guys, so the Dominican Republic is amazing. I have been to the Dominican Republic twice, and I've looked at real estate both times. I have not invested in the Dominican Republic. It's not because I don't love it. I have friends there who are investing, and they're doing phenomenally well. I would say the same thing about the Dominican Republic. If you get outside of the really expensive areas, your money will go very, very far, and there's money to be made there. The last time I was in the Dominican Republic, I stayed at a resort on a river that I think it had 14 rooms, and I could have bought it for 120 grand. I mean, and it was not in bad shape. It was beautiful. The nature around it was amazing. I couldn't understand why it was so cheap, to be honest. But for the same reason that I'm not going to buy something in Yabucoa, I'm not likely right now to buy something in the Dominican Republic. So unless and until I get to a point where I'm ready to expand out of the couple of areas where we've got a buy box, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And what I'm doing is working really well for me. So I'm not trying to discourage anyone from going to the Dominican Republic. I think it can be a really great investment, but I think Puerto Rico's better. And I've lots of reasons that I think Puerto Rico's better, but the main one is probably that the Puerto Rico is the United States of America, and the dollar is the dollar, and the government is the government, and you can come here with your driver's license. You don't need a passport. Those are a few. Plus, Puerto Rico just has a lot of really good incentives that they want to invite people to come and invest. So
there's a lot of comforts to that too. You can get away well having a few, like you're traveling to a different country. Yes, you're getting all that experience in.
Yeah,
but you still have the comforts of, you can basically speak the same language here.
Yeah,
you're driving on the right side of the road.
Yeah, it's a big one, right? Like you're not in the Bahamas driving on the wrong side of the road.
Yeah.
So, it's easy to get around. And for the Caribbean, the roads aren't that bad, even though they're horrible compared to like Florida. Yeah. But we have great infrastructure here.
Yes.
The power goes out all the time. Yes, but it's for the Caribbean, it's great infrastructure. Yeah. We have good power. We have good water. We have good roads.
Yeah.
And
all those things
you can talk about corrupt governments and things like that, but it's pretty stable, even though we threw the governor out a few years ago. And that was fun to live through.
BK asks, in your opinion, what areas of real estate in Puerto Rico is underserved, not towns, interested in types of real estate, storage, ecotourism, boutique hotels, commercial, exactly.
All right. So, BK, we invest in tourism, and the island wants to increase the profit of the portion of the GDP that comes from tourism. They want to take it from 6.5% or 7% that it is today and bring it all the way up to like 18 or 20%. So I think that there's a lot of growth in that. I think that I don't see very many storage facilities. So I think storage facilities could be another place that
There's an opportunity there.
I think there's an opportunity with storage facilities,
You have
especially as you start to see development and wherever you see people building things, you're going to have a need for storage. So I love that one. And another one I would tell you, automation. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Automation and things like bringing a laundromat from, putting actual quarters in it up to
taking a card,
to a credit, taking a card. That kind of stuff could be really, really lucrative here. And so we're investing in those areas. I'm actually interested in the storage facility stuff. We've never done it in Florida or on the island of Puerto Rico. I'm interested in that.
I got a place for you. I got a place for both of you.
Yeah.
I know of this town they're investing $2 billion into.
There you go.
I would imagine they need a storage facility around there.
They may. I think so.
Elio has a question. Will there be investment opportunities in PR becoming a state and Act 6022 going away? Yes.
Look, if Puerto Rico becomes a state and you are investing in real estate before it becomes a state, you win. I think that's like automatic. I don't know. I don't know if it will be immediate, but I think that if Puerto Rico, when it becomes a state, and I think that there's a pretty big likelihood that eventually it does become a state, people who own real estate here are going to be pretty happy with that.
Well, not only that, and I don't know what laws stay and leave, but the inheritance thing it's got to change everything. Get rid of all the old Spanish law.
Yeah.
And now actually get rid of
some
of these properties.
Get rid of the colonizers law that the Spanish put in when they first colonized, right?
Yeah.
And then allow families to be able to sell these properties that they've had for years and years that are just being distressed.
And it's just to add to this, it's really interesting he asked about the 60 and the 22, because I don't think that affects the real estate as much as people think. That's really there's a massive incentive obviously for hotels and stuff like that, but that doesn't affect the single family, the multifamily.
Here's the thing, as a real estate investor, if Act 2022 goes away, it doesn't affect me at all as a real estate investor. I'm not part of that. So will it affect the island? That could have a negative impact on the island if you take away a segment of society that's bringing millions of dollars. And I know we could have an argument about that. And I'm not sure. Well, I am sure of this. That act has brought millions and millions of dollars to the island of Puerto Rico. Whether or not you're happy about it or not, I don't think that it's really undeniable that the Act 2022 people that are here, they come to the island with pockets full of cash. And Act 60 is a great act that we use in the tourism industry. So if that went away, would that stop us from investing in tourism? It wouldn't, but that would be a bummer for us. That would directly affect me as an investor.
Mark, we did our first buy and hold in Aguala as investment and short-term rental. After taking the plunge on our own, we're looking for the possibility of partnering on the next one. Any advice? Yeah, send me an email, theflipflopflipperpr@gmail.com. We're inviting partnerships. I'm moving to Rincon. Like, I don't have a place to move yet, but I'm leaving tomorrow to go back to look. I'm still on the house hunt, and the plan right now is for us to move from San Juan to Rincon, and we have, quite honestly, not seen a lot of real estate out there. So we are looking for partners out there that know the area, and we're looking for partnerships. We're looking for whatever you've got. So if you are interested in doing something together, send me an email, theflipflopflipper@gmail.com. And guys, this is the last question now. From here, we're closing it out. So if you have anything else, now's the time. Yeah, if you got more questions, put them in quick. You can get them in under the wire. Otherwise, we'll answer the question and then we'll sign off. What do we got? From Angel. What do you think is the best way to find properties in PR? Is it classificados or just feet on the ground?
Yeah.
On the ground?
So I believe that the best way to find properties in Puerto Rico is relationship island and networking, feet on the ground, networking, who you know, telling people that what you're looking for, be specific about it, and try and find people who are doing something similar and talking to them to find deals. That in Puerto Rico has worked really. So when we first came, there was a whole bunch of bank owned stuff and that worked great. There doesn't seem to be a whole bunch of bank owned stuff. So I would say the next best place that we've found has been word of mouth, just boots on the ground, looking at everything and letting people know what we're looking for, that we're looking for distressed real estate that we could buy and fix up and figure out its highest and best use. And it's worked really, really well. Classificados, I look at them all the time, but you know what I use classificados for is to reach out to the people that have the stuff listed in classificados and talk to them and always ask them, hey, I'm calling you about this house, but tell me about anything you've got.
Okay. Elio asks, what will you do if property tax jumps 10 times, 10x, property tax 10x? And he says because of the recent property hikes.
I don't think that Puerto Rico's property taxes are cheap. So when I compare property tax to Florida and property tax to Puerto Rico, I don't think the property tax necessarily is really inexpensive in Puerto Rico. And two, it is just the cost of doing business, right? Like, so you're always going to have property taxes and you factor it in your deal. And if property tax is 10x, then we're going to deal with it. And we're going to keep looking at real estate and we're going to keep buying the stuff that makes sense. And it's definitely going to mean that will become a much heavier factor or a much bigger portion of what we weigh to determine if something is a good deal or not. And we are seeing taxes go up. I mean, it's in Florida, I see it more, right? Like, so Puerto Rico still, the taxes, they're not super cheap, but they're also not skyrocketing. But if they go up, it'll become a bigger portion of the equation, but we're going to keep buying real estate.
BK says, good night, guys. Thank you. Nice to see you back on the line.
BK, thank you, man. We know we can always count on you for being there, and I appreciate all the comments you give and everything. Everybody, thank you for your questions. This was a lot of fun. For me, this might be the best Monday Night Live we've ever done because you guys rocked it with the questions. So you guys that asked the questions, thank you very much. I hope you come back next week and bring it, guys. Bring your questions, and we will do our best to answer them. If you guys would go ahead and hit the thumbs up for us, that really helps, as this video will kind of take some traction inside of the YouTube. God, I can't talk. The YouTube algorithm, the more likes we get, the more it'll be shown. So that'll be great. And anyways, we'll see you next week, Monday night, 7 p.m. And maybe we'll have a topic. Maybe we won't. This worked out really well tonight. So yeah. I love it.
And don't forget, if you're interested in the mastermind, we have the hyperlink in the description. It's the very first one. Click that, fill out the form, and expect a call.
There you go.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. God bless you guys. Good night.